Chapter 1. A Mad Move. Avery Quinn stood in front of the Peninsula Hotel in downtown Chicago, the neon glow from the large sign casting a fiery red sheen on the wig atop her head, blazing like a flame in the night. A light rain fell, tiny droplets pattering against the asphalt, reflecting the orange-yellow light from the skyscrapers around her. She gripped her small purse tightly, the rough fabric rubbing against her sweaty palms. Her heart pounded as if it might burst from her chest, each beat a warning that she was about to step into a mad decision she couldn't take back. Behind that luxurious revolving glass door, an extravagant wedding was about to begin, and Avery was set to turn it into chaos, all to save Mia, her best friend. Just a few hours earlier, Avery had been sitting in her tiny apartment in Logan Square, the blue light from her laptop screen illuminating her tired face. She was a freelance graphic designer, 27 years old, scraping by on odd jobs. Logos for startups, ad banners for local shops. But this week, a big client had canceled, leaving her with overdue rent and a bank account down to 3 digits. Her phone buzzed amid a pile of sketches and a cold coffee mug, the screen flashing Mia. Avery frowned. Mia rarely called at this hour, usually opting for playful texts like, "Your banners suck, but I still love you," or "Bring coffee, I'm down." But when Avery answered, no laughter came through, only choked sobs. "Avery, they're forcing me to marry Grayson Bradley this weekend. I don't love him. I love Jake. You have to crash the wedding. Help me escape." Avery stood under the rain, taking a deep breath, her trembling exhale blending with the damp air. Grayson Bradley, that name loomed like a specter in Chicago's business world. A powerful real estate mogul who owned a string of high-rises and lakeside mansions along Lake Michigan. He often appeared in Forbes with a cold smile and eyes sharp as knives. He was someone no one dared cross, a man who could ruin anyone's life with a snap of his fingers. Avery knew that, but she also knew Mia, the friend who'd sat with her through long, jobless nights when she'd cried into her desk over unpaid electric bills. Mia had once brought a cheap pizza, patted her shoulder, and said, "You'll get through this, Avery. I believe in you." Now, Mia's family was forcing her to marry Grayson to settle her father's massive debt, a failed real estate deal that had landed them in the Bradley family's grip. If Avery did nothing, Mia would lose Jake, the poor musician with star-bright eyes who'd played her a homemade song on her 20th birthday. She pulled the red wig lower, the synthetic strands itching against her scalp. "I'm crazy," she muttered, her trembling hands adjusting the cheap green dress she'd bought from a thrift store in Wicker Park. The dress was tight at the waist but loose enough to stuff a small pillow inside, mimicking a pregnant belly. Financial pressure weighed on her, the latest contract cancellation, rent 3 days overdue, her landlord texting threats to evict her, but now wasn't the time to think about money. Avery glanced at her phone's clock. 7:45 p.m. The wedding started at 8. She stepped forward, her old sneakers scraping the wet sidewalk, each step dragging her deeper into a plan she wasn't sure she'd survive. She pushed through the revolving glass door, stepping into the hotel's opulent lobby with its glossy marble floors and a massive crystal chandelier hanging like an artificial moon. Soft violin music drifted from the grand ballroom ahead, mingling with the lively chatter of the elite crowd. Avery slipped past a group of white uniformed servers carrying trays of wine, trying to look natural despite the cold sweat trickling down her spine. A tall security guard near the ballroom door glanced at her, his hand resting on his radio. Avery quickly raised a hand to adjust her wig, hiding her panicked eyes. Mia had texted earlier. "I'll be in a white wedding dress. Jake's waiting in the parking lot out back. Yell something shocking? I'll run." Avery pushed open the ballroom doors, stepping into a space of breathtaking extravagance. Over 300 guests, businessmen in black suits, women dripping with sparkling jewelry, politicians with fake smiles, sat on red velvet chairs, their eyes fixed on the dais ahead. Dazzling white floral wreaths hung on the walls, the chandelier's light glinting off expensive wine glasses on silk-draped round tables. Mia stood in the center, her stunning white wedding dress hugging her frame, but her eyes were deep with sorrow, like a bird about to be caged in gold. Beside her was Grayson Bradley, tall in a perfectly tailored gray suit, black hair slicked back. A smug smile aimed at the crowd as if he just won a high-stakes game. Avery swallowed hard, her hand clutching her stomach, where the pillow faked a pregnant bulge. She took a deep breath and bolted down the aisle between the rows of chairs. "Stop!" Avery shouted, her voice cracking through the quiet space. The violins halted instantly, as if someone had snapped their strings. Every eye turned to her, shocked, curious, skeptical. She pointed at Grayson, her other hand clutching her belly, fake tears streaming thanks to skills honed watching rom-coms with Mia every weekend. "Grayson Bradley, you can't marry her. You abandoned me when I got pregnant. You said you loved me, then vanished after one night at Rusty Nail." The ballroom erupted in chaos. Whispers spread like wildfire, a few older women murmuring, "I knew that boy was trouble." A man in a black suit stood, snapping photos with his phone, the flash popping like lightning. Grayson charged down from the dais, his face flushed red, his icy gaze piercing through Avery. "Who are you? I don't know you," he roared, his voice drowning out the crowd's murmurs. But Avery didn't stop. "Don't pretend, Grayson. You drove that vintage Mustang that night, said I was the only one, then left me with this baby." She clutched her stomach tighter, the pillow nearly slipping, but she caught it in time, almost laughing amid the tension at Grayson's baffled expression. The crowd gasped, some chuckling, others shouting, "Unbelievable!" Through the corner of her eye, Avery saw Mia edging toward the back door, her white dress billowing as she ran to the parking lot where Jake waited on his beat-up motorcycle. But Grayson wouldn't let it slide. He barked at 3 black-suited guards nearby, his commands sharp. "Grab her now!" The men lunged toward Avery from both sides of the aisle, their heavy footsteps echoing on the polished wood floor. Avery spun around, darting through the crowd, knocking over a table of wine in a chorus of shrieks. Glasses shattered, red wine spilling like blood, slowing one guard's pursuit. Avery raced through the hotel hallway, her heart pounding wildly in her chest. She shoved open the emergency exit, hurtling down the metal stairs, her sneakers clanging against the steel in rhythm with the rain outside. A guard nearly grabbed her arm, but Avery leaped over the lower railing, landing on the concrete below with a gasp. She dashed into the main lobby, toppling a silver-laden food cart, the crash of metal ringing behind her. "Stop!" Grayson's shout echoed from a distance, cold and cutting, but Avery didn't look back. She burst onto Chicago streets, car lights flashing through the rain, weaving through the crowded sidewalk. A man in a raincoat yelled as she bumped him, but Avery kept going. A yellow taxi screeched up from afar, and Avery waved frantically, diving in as it stopped. "Go, fast!" she yelled, her voice breaking with panic. The driver, a middle-aged man with silver hair, glanced at her through the rearview mirror, his eyes curious but silent. He hit the gas, the car plunging into the bustling traffic on Michigan Avenue. Avery peered through the back window, spotting Grayson and 2 guards standing in the rain on the hotel sidewalk. Grayson didn't chase, but his eyes, frigid, sharp as a blade, cut through the downpour, locking onto her like a promise he wouldn't let this go easily. Avery panted, yanking the red wig off her head and stuffing it into her purse. "You owe me big, Mia," she muttered, trying to steady her breathing. Through the taxi window, she'd seen Mia and Jake speed off on the motorcycle through a back alley as the crowd reeled. Her plan had worked. But at what cost? Grayson Bradley wasn't one to forgive. He'd find her, and when he did, Avery wasn't sure she could escape again. The taxi pulled up at the Greyhound bus station a few blocks away, and Avery paid with crumpled dollar bills, rushing into the ticket counter through the cold rain. "1 ticket to Stormhaven, the soonest trip," she said urgently to the clerk, an older woman chewing gum. The woman typed slowly, handing her a ticket for the night bus leaving in 15 minutes. Avery boarded, curling up in the back row, clutching her purse like a flimsy shield. Streetlights streaked past the window, faint glowing trails on her pale face. The bus rolled out, leaving Chicago behind in the thick rain. Avery gazed out the window, the city fading beyond the towering buildings and flickering lights. She didn't know what Stormhaven, a remote lakeside town near the Great Lakes, would bring. A hideout or a new trap waiting for her. But she knew she couldn't turn back. Mia was free, and Avery had traded her own safety for that. She closed her eyes, the bus engine humming with her racing heartbeat, carrying her to an uncertain future, where Grayson Bradley, with his cold fury and limitless resources, was already preparing to hunt her down. Avery gripped her purse tighter, her breathing slowing, but fear clung to her like the chill seeping through her thin coat. She'd escaped once. Could she do it again? Thank you for 10,000 subscribers. We are overjoyed and incredibly grateful to announce that Soul Stories has officially reached 10,000 subscribers. This milestone wouldn't have been possible without your amazing support. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you for every comment, like, and word of encouragement. We know there have been times when we didn't do our best, but your honest feedback has helped us grow and improve. Your trust and support mean everything to us, and we are more motivated than ever to bring you even more meaningful and inspiring stories. We promise to keep doing our best so we never let you down. Let's continue spreading love, joy, and positivity together. Wishing our beloved audience happiness, peace, and all the best in life. Don't forget to subscribe and stay with us on this journey. Chapter 2. The Pursuit. The Greyhound bus pulled into a small station in Storm Haven just as dawn broke, the faint light filtering through the thick fog rolling off the Great Lakes. Avery Quinn stepped off, her old sneakers crunching on the gravel road, her small cross-body bag heavy with a laptop and a few clothes hastily stuffed in the night before. She pulled the hood of her hoodie tight over her head, concealing her disheveled brown hair, and took a deep breath of the salty coastal air. Storm Haven, a remote lakeside town she'd only known from a few online travel articles, was where she hoped to hide from Grayson Bradley's wrath. But even standing on this deserted road, with wooden houses peeking through rows of pine trees, Avery still felt his piercing, cold gaze lurking from afar. She found a small wooden cabin near the beach through a handwritten ad pinned up at the local general store. The owner, a wiry old woman named Elsie, handed her the key with a curious look, but asked nothing beyond. "You staying long?" Avery replied curtly, "Not sure," and paid a month's rent with the last of her cash from the bus trip out of Chicago. The cabin, with its weathered wooden walls and rusted tin roof, sat nestled between two towering rows of pines, a few hundred meters from the beach. Inside, there was just a single bed, a rickety wooden table, and a small kitchen with a fireplace long out of use. Avery set her laptop on the table, turned it on, and tried connecting to the weak Wi-Fi signal from a nearby cafe. She still needed to work online to make money, even if it was just the scraps of small design gigs she had left. Her first day in Storm Haven passed in a deceptive calm. Avery sat in the Driftwood, a cozy little cafe where the aroma of roasted coffee and toasted bread hung in the air. She worked on her laptop, tweaking a logo for a client in Ohio, her eyes occasionally darting to the window where gray waves crashed against the rocky shore. But that calm didn't last. Grayson Bradley, the man she'd humiliated in front of 300 VIPs at his wedding in Chicago, wasn't the type to let things go. The moment Avery left the city, he'd hired private investigators who traced her through security cameras at the Greyhound station. They ransacked her small Logan Square apartment just hours after she'd boarded the bus, tearing through papers on her desk, checking her Reuters internet history, and uncovering the ticket she'd bought online. Avery had escaped by a hair. If she'd lingered a few minutes longer, they'd have caught her right at the station. In Chicago, Grayson stood in his sleek office on the 45th floor of Bradley Tower, gazing down at the city through a massive glass window. His deep blue eyes were cold, his hand gripping the phone tightly as he listened to the investigator's report. She took a bus to Storm Haven, but the trail goes cold there. Grayson slammed the phone onto the desk, his voice icy. "Find her. Leave no corner unchecked. I want her standing in front of me within a week." He couldn't let the wedding humiliation slide, not because of Mia, whom he didn't care to marry, but because Avery had tarnished the Bradley family's reputation in front of Chicago's elite. His father, a ruthless real estate tycoon, had summoned him to his office right after the ruined ceremony, roaring, "You let some brat destroy my plans? Find her and fix this now." Grayson had no choice. He had to make Avery pay. In Storm Haven, Avery tried to blend in to avoid notice. She wore a baggy hoodie, kept conversations short, speaking only to the cafe owner, a middle-aged woman named Marla, when ordering coffee. But on the third day, as Avery sat in her corner of the driftwood with her laptop, Marla approached, setting a black coffee on the table and whispering, "Heard anything? Someone's offering a reward for a red-haired girl around here. They say she caused big trouble in Chicago." Avery froze, her hand clutching the hot mug until it burned. She forced a laugh, her voice shaky. "Sounds like a movie, huh? Probably not real." But Marla's fleeting look of suspicion made Avery feel like the wooden floor beneath her was caving in. That night, Avery couldn't sleep. She sat by the cabin window, staring out at the pitch-black beach where waves growled under a dim moon. The wind whistled through cracks in the walls like a warning. Then she saw it, a figure standing near the pine trees a few dozen meters away, tall and broad in a black coat. Avery held her breath, her heart pounding, her hand gripping her phone, but not daring to call anyone. She'd cut contact with Mia right after leaving Chicago, leaving no trace to protect her friend from Grayson. The figure lingered for a moment, then melted into the shadows. But Avery knew they were closing in. The next morning, Avery went to the cafe as usual, trying to stay calm. But as she opened her laptop, a strange man sat at the table across from her, wearing a gray coat and sunglasses despite the overcast sky. He didn't drink coffee, just watched her silently over his phone screen. Avery felt cold sweat trickle down her spine, her hands trembling as she typed. She stood, paid quickly, and left the cafe, but didn't head straight home. She detoured through a narrow alley, weaving through a few streets to see if anyone followed. When she was sure no one was there, she ran back to the cabin, locked the door tight, and drew the curtains shut. But the sense of danger didn't leave her. Grayson had come to Stormhaven. She didn't know exactly when, but she felt it. In Chicago, he'd ordered his investigators, "Find her, leave no corner unchecked." He'd arrived in the town on the fourth day after Avery fled, driving a sleek black SUV, stopping at a small motel in central Stormhaven. He stepped out, his gray suit damp with rain, his cold eyes scanning every street corner. "She's here," he told his assistant, his voice low and certain. "I want to see her begging for mercy before this week ends." Grayson didn't just want to catch Avery. He wanted her to feel the price of daring to defy him, of humiliating him in front of the world he ruled. Avery lived more reclusively after that. She avoided going out unless necessary, working inside the cabin over its shaky Wi-Fi, always locking the door and checking the windows each night. She didn't dare contact Mia. Jake and Mia must have fled far by now, maybe to another state, living happily with their love. Avery smiled at the thought, but the smile faded fast as she recalled Grayson's eyes at the wedding. Cold, dangerous, unforgiving. She suspected he was close to finding her, and every odd sound outside, the wind, footsteps passing by, made her jump. On her fifth night in Stormhaven, Avery sat on the old wooden chair in the cabin, laptop on her lap, the blue screen light casting shadows on her tense face. She was editing an ad banner, but her hands shook so much the cursor kept slipping off the lines. A faint noise came from outside, like tires rolling over gravel. Avery sprang up, ran to the window, and peeked through the curtains. Under the dim streetlight, a black SUV parked near the cafe a few hundred meters from her cabin, its headlights off, but she saw a tall man step out, saying something to the driver before vanishing into the dark. Avery's heart raced like it might burst, her breath rapid in her chest. It was Grayson. She didn't need to see his face to know. He was here, closer than ever. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms until they hurt. She had no time left to run. Stormhaven wasn't big enough to hide in forever. She had to decide, stay and face him, or find a way to flee again, though the odds grew slimmer by the minute. Avery turned back to the table, shut her laptop and stuffed it into her bag. She stood in the dark, her heart pounding fiercely, knowing Grayson Bradley was about to knock, or worse, break down her door. She braced herself for the worst, but deep down, she still clung to a faint hope that a miracle might save her from this nightmare. Chapter 3. The Storm of Fate. Avery Quinn had been in Stormhaven for 8 days, and in those 8 days, she'd gradually adjusted to the slow rhythm of this coastal town, a stark contrast to the relentless pace of Chicago. Each morning, she sat in the small wooden cabin near the beach, opening her laptop on the rickety old table, tweaking graphic design projects over the weak Wi-Fi from the Driftwood Cafe. The steady crash of waves from the Great Lakes against the rocky shore a few hundred meters away was like a looping background track, helping her briefly forget the sleepless nights in the big city. Nights spent worrying about rent, failed contracts, and most recently, Grayson Bradley's cold stare when she'd ruined his wedding. But despite her efforts to blend into Stormhaven's calm, Avery couldn't shake the unease. Like every wave carried a whisper that he was drawing closer. Her cabin was simple but warm enough to get by. She only went out when necessary, buying groceries at Elsie's general store or sitting at the Driftwood to send files to clients. She avoided too much conversation, always pulling her hoodie tight over her head, keeping her eyes down whenever she passed the rare fishermen or tourists on the gravel path home. But each night, as the dim light of the oil lamp in the cabin cast shadows on her tense face, Avery couldn't stop herself from peering out the window, checking for unfamiliar shapes beyond the pine trees. Grayson Bradley was in Stormhaven. She was certain of it, ever since she'd seen that black SUV near the cafe the previous night. He was hunting her, and she didn't know how much time she had left before he knocked on her door. On the 8th night, Stormhaven's sky darkened unnaturally. Avery sat in her wooden chair, laptop open before her, the blue screen light illuminating her weary eyes. She was editing an ad banner, but her hands kept slipping off the mouse, her mind drifting somewhere between the waves and her fear. A low rumble echoed from afar, like thunder rolling across the vast lake. Avery stood, pulled back the window curtain, and saw black clouds churning in the sky, blotting out the moon. The wind began to howl, rattling the old wooden window frame, and the waves beyond the beach slammed against the rocks with fiercer force than ever. A massive storm from the Great Lakes was bearing down, a rare but terrifying event Elsie had warned her about when handing over the key. Watch out for lake storms. They can sweep the whole town away. Avery locked the front door tight, checked the windows again, then sat back down, trying to focus on her work. But the wind's roaring grew louder, drowning out her keystrokes. The windows shook as if they might shatter, and the first raindrops hit the glass hard, streaking into long trails. Avery got up, grabbed a wooden stick from the corner, the one she'd kept close since spotting that stranger near the house, and set it beside her chair as a makeshift weapon. She told herself, "It's just a storm, not Grayson." But as she sat down, another sound cut through the wind, a faint cry for help from the beach. Avery froze, her heart pounding. She rushed to the window, peeked through the curtain, but the thick rain obscured everything outside. The cry came again, clearer this time. "Help! Me!" A man's voice, weak but desperate, nearly swallowed by the waves. Avery clutched the stick, her breathing rapid. "Not my problem," she muttered, trying to convince herself to stay put. But a third cry rang out, closer now, as if the person was being dragged toward shore by the surf. Avery bit her lip, her conscience flaring up like a fire she couldn't extinguish. She couldn't let someone die out there, not when she could do something. She flung open the door, icy wind slamming into her face like 1,000 needles. Avery pulled on a thin raincoat, grabbed a flashlight with trembling hands and dashed outside. Rain whipped at her, soaking through her coat, plastering her hair to her face. She ran to the beach, the flashlight beam sweeping across the churning gray waves that roared like monsters. Where are you?" she shouted, her voice snatched away by the wind. Then she saw him, a man trapped under a splintered boat fragment a few meters from shore, his hands clinging to the wood, but the waves kept pulling him under. Avery didn't hesitate, plunging into the water, the frigid surf surging past her knees, then her waist. The lake water was like ice, each step weighed down as if by stones. Avery reached out, grabbing the man's arm, but a wave crashed hard, nearly knocking her over. "Don't let go!" she yelled, pulling with all her strength. He was heavier than she'd expected, his body limp from exhaustion, but Avery refused to give up. She hooked her arms under his chest, using her shoulder to shove the wood aside, dragging him to shore inch by inch. Waves slammed her back, water flooding her mouth, but she gritted her teeth, hauling him until they both collapsed onto the sodden sand. Avery gasped for air, Her flashlight lost somewhere in the surf, but she didn't care. She'd saved him. She staggered to her feet, dragging the man into the cabin, shutting the door against the storm. In the faint glow of the oil lamp, Avery laid him on the floor near the fireplace, wrapping an old blanket from the bed around him. He was freezing, lips purple, wet clothes clinging to his frame. Avery darted to the kitchen, grabbed a towel to wipe water from his face, then found gauze in her first aid kit to bandage a deep cut on his arm, likely from the wood. She didn't look closely at his face, focused only on keeping him alive. She muttered, "Just stay still. Don't die in my house." But as she leaned down to wipe water from his forehead, the lamplight revealed his face clearly. Avery froze, her breath catching in her throat. Closed eyes, wet black hair plastered to his head, and sharp chiseled features. It was Grayson Bradley, the enemy who'd hunted her for the past week, who'd sworn to make her pay for crashing his wedding. Avery stumbled back, her trembling hands dropping the towel to the floor. "No, it can't be," she whispered, eyes wide with horror. He was here, in her cabin, unconscious but alive, the man she'd just risked her life to save from the storm. Panic surged through her, her heart hammering like it might burst. "I have to leave him," she told herself, staring at Grayson's pale face. He was her greatest threat, the one who'd hired detectives, offered rewards, nearly caught her in Chicago. If he woke up, he'd recognize her, and it'd all be over. Avery stood, lunging to the corner for her bag, ready to flee into the storm. But she stopped, gazing at him lying there, cold and still, his faint breath puffing out like white mist in the frigid air. Her conscience screamed. If she abandoned him, he'd die, and she'd never forgive herself. Avery bit her lip until it bled, her hand clutching her bag. She couldn't kill him, even if he was her enemy. "Damn it," she muttered, tossing the bag to the floor and turning back to Grayson. She stoked the fireplace with a few dry logs, the small flames crackling to life, spreading warmth into the icy room. Avery pulled the blanket higher around him, dried his hair with another towel, and checked his breathing, weak but steady. She didn't know what else to do, only that she had to keep him alive through this stormy night. When the fire steadied, Avery sat on the floor beside Grayson, keeping just enough distance to watch him. She picked up the stick she'd kept as a weapon, gripping it tightly, her eyes fixed on his face. The flickering lamp cast light on Grayson's sharp features. High nose, thick brows, lips pressed tight even in unconsciousness. Avery shivered, not from the cold, but from the conflict raging inside her. She'd just saved her enemy, the man who, if he woke, might grab her, drag her back to Chicago, and destroy her life as he'd promised. Yet she also wanted him to live so she could escape him again before he opened his eyes. The storm roared outside, wind battering the windows as if trying to tear the cabin apart. Avery sat there, stick in hand, her gaze locked on Grayson. Every cough he let out, every faint breath, made her flinch. She dreaded him waking up right then, yet prayed he'd survive the night. Not for his sake, but because she didn't want the guilt of letting him die, even if he was her most dangerous foe. Avery whispered into the darkness, "Live, then let me escape you." But deep down, she knew this night would change everything, and she couldn't predict what awaited her when the storm finally broke. Chapter 4: The Long Night and the Truth. The small wooden cabin in Stormhaven trembled under the roar of the lake storm, the wind whistling through cracks in the walls like the howl of a wounded beast. Avery Quinn sat huddled on the wooden floor by the fireplace, her hand gripping the stick she'd picked up from the corner. Her eyes fixed on Grayson Bradley, the man she'd just risked her life to save from the raging waves of the Great Lakes. The flickering fire cast light on his pale face, his wet black hair plastered to his forehead, his eyes shut tight as if lost in a deep trance. He lay motionless under the old blanket Avery had wrapped around him, his faint breath puffing out in white wisps in the frigid air. But even unconscious, Avery didn't dare relax. This was Grayson, the enemy who'd hunted her for 8 days, who vowed to make her pay for ruining his wedding in Chicago. Avery clutched the stick tighter, her nails digging into her palms until they stung. She just saved him, dragged him from the beach in the storm, bandaged the cut on his arm, stoked the fire to keep him alive. But now, as the dim oil lamp revealed the sharp contours of his face, Avery only wanted to run. She'd seen the black SUV near the cafe last night, heard the rumors from Marla about a bounty on a red-haired girl. Grayson had come to Stormhaven for her, and if he woke up, if he recognized her, it would all be over. Avery glanced at her bag in the corner, where her laptop and a little cash lay ready. "I have to go," she whispered, her voice trembling in the dark. But every time she moved to stand, her eyes fell back to Grayson, freezing, frail, almost harmless in this state. She couldn't leave him to die, even if he was her greatest threat. The storm outside showed no sign of stopping. Wind slammed the windows, making the glass rattle as if it might shatter, and the lake's waves roared like they'd swallow the town whole. Avery sat there, stick in hand, her breathing rapid, her gaze never leaving Grayson. Then he stirred. A weak cough escaped his throat, startling Avery to her feet. She lunged for the door, her hand brushing the latch, ready to flee into the storm to escape him. But before she could open it, a hoarse voice rasped behind her. "Don't go! I won't hurt you!" Avery spun around, her heart pounding. Grayson had opened his eyes, their deep blue clouded with exhaustion, peering at her through the fire's flickering light. He tried to sit up, but his weakened body collapsed back to the floor, his hand clutching the blanket like a drowning man grasping a lifeline. Avery stood still, the stick trembling in her grip, her eyes darting between him and the door. "You—" Grayson coughed, his voice faint but carrying a clear recognition. "You're the one from the wedding, the red-haired girl." Avery stiffened, her breath catching in her throat. He'd recognized her. There was no way out now. She raised the stick, her voice shaky but trying to sound threatening. "Don't move, Grayson Bradley. I know you came here to catch me. I won't let you." Grayson looked at her, his tired eyes devoid of the anger she'd seen at the Peninsula Hotel. He coughed again, clutching his chest, then whispered, "I don't have the strength to catch you. Not now." She frowned, distrusting his words. Avery stepped closer, but kept a safe distance, the stick still raised. "Don't lie. You chased me from Chicago to here. You had my apartment searched, put a bounty on me. What do you want? Revenge for crashing your wedding?" Her voice rose, laced with fear and fury, echoing over the wind outside. Grayson closed his eyes, his breathing labored. He stayed silent for a moment, then opened them again, his gaze no longer sharp as before. "That's right," he said, his voice hoarse. "I came to Stormhaven to catch you. I wanted you to pay for humiliating me in front of 300 guests. My father, the whole world I know, but—" He paused, coughing, his hand tightening on the blanket. "I didn't expect to get caught in this. The storm trapped me, my boat smashed apart while I was looking for you." Avery blinked, surprised by his candor. "Looking for me in a storm?" she asked, her tone skeptical. "Why would you risk that? Just to catch me?" Grayson gave a dry, bitter chuckle, a faint sound. "Not exactly. I left Chicago the moment I knew you'd come here. I rented a boat from a port near Stormhaven, planning to search every house along the coast to drag you out. But the storm hit midway. Waves smashed the boat and I nearly drowned. I didn't expect you'd be the one to save me." He looked at her, a hint of confusion in his eyes. "Why did you do it? You knew who I was." Avery gripped the stick tighter, pressing her lips together. "I didn't know then," she said, her voice trembling. "I just heard a cry for help. I couldn't let anyone die out there, even you. But now I regret it." She stepped back, her eyes wary. "You're awake, so I'm leaving. Don't come after me." "Wait!" Grayson called, his voice weak but firm. He tried to lift himself but fell back to the floor, clutching his chest and panting. "You don't have to run. I won't hurt you. Not after this." Avery paused, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Why should I believe you? You did everything to catch me. Hired detectives, offered rewards, drove me out of Chicago. You wanted revenge, and now you've got your chance. Why wouldn't I think you're tricking me?" Grayson sighed, his head resting against the wooden floor, his gaze drifting to the storm-shaken ceiling. "Because I don't have a reason to hate you anymore," he said, his voice lowering. "You're right. I hunted you for that humiliation. My father forced me to marry Mia to solidify the family's power, a marriage contract with the Golan family to expand our real estate empire. When you wrecked the wedding, I lost everything, my reputation, my place in the company, my father's trust. He called me a failure, said I wasn't fit to be his heir. He stopped coughing, then continued. I blamed you, wanted you to pay to prove I could still control things. But this storm, it made me think again. Avery frowned, the stick in her hand dipping slightly. Think about what? She asked, her tone still guarded. Grayson looked at her, his eyes weary but sincere. That I was trapped too, just like Mia. My father gave me no choice, marry her or lose everything. I didn't love Mia, didn't want that marriage, but I didn't have the guts to defy him. You did what I couldn't, broke that cage, even if it was for someone else. He gave a dry chuckle. I was mad at you because you dared to, and I didn't. Avery fell silent, his words cutting into her thoughts like a blade. She remembered Mia's desolate eyes in that wedding dress, her desperate voice over the phone. She'd crashed the wedding for Mia, for their friendship, to keep the light in Mia's eyes from dying out in Grayson's golden cage. But now hearing him, Avery realized Grayson was a caged bird too, his prison forged from money and power. She stepped back, sank into the chair, the stick still in her hand but no longer raised. Then why chase me? She asked, her voice quieter. If you didn't want to marry Mia, why not leave me alone? Grayson closed his eyes, his breathing steadying. Because I didn't know what else to do, he said. My father wanted me to fix it, and I thought catching you was the only way to reclaim my honor. But when the boat broke, when I was pulled under, I didn't think about him or honor anymore. I just wanted to live, and you saved me. He opened his eyes, looking at her with an unreadable expression. I don't know why you did it, but I know I don't want to catch you anymore. Avery bit her lip, her gaze flickering between Grayson and the door. I don't believe you, she said, her voice firm. You're saying this because you're weak now. When you're strong again, you'll call someone to grab me. I'm not stupid. Grayson smiled faintly, a weak sound without malice. You're smarter than I thought, he said. But I don't have the strength to call anyone, and if I wanted to catch you, I wouldn't be lying here talking like this. He coughed, clutching his chest, his face contorting in pain. The storm made me reflect, Avery. I don't want to live like my father anymore. Hunting, controlling, avenging. I'm tired. Avery went quiet, Grayson's words echoing in her mind. She thought of Mia, forced into a gilded cage by her family's money and power. She recalled Grayson's eyes at the wedding, cold but now in the firelight, they held a sadness she hadn't expected. Avery set the stick on the floor, still within reach. I crashed the wedding for Mia, she said, her voice soft but steady. She's my best friend. She loves Jake, and I couldn't let her be trapped in a marriage with you. I wasn't afraid of you then, but when you chased me, I was so scared I couldn't sleep. Grayson looked at her, silent for a long moment. I'm sorry, he said, his voice low and sincere. I didn't know about Mia. I didn't care enough to know. I was just following my father's orders, but now I understand why you did it, and I regret chasing you. Avery frowned, her eyes skeptical. Do you really regret it? Or are you just saying that so I'll stay and look after you through this night? Grayson gave a dry chuckle. You don't trust me, I get it, but I promise I won't hurt you. Not after this. He closed his eyes, his breathing heavy. You can leave when the storm's over. I won't stop you. Avery stared at him, her heart a tangled mess. She didn't trust him, not fully. Grayson Bradley was her enemy, the one who'd driven her from Chicago, kept her in fear for 8 days. But he was also the man she'd saved, a man frail, near death. No longer the powerful figure she'd known. She stood, walked to the corner to grab her bag, deciding she'd flee when the storm broke at dawn. But as she turned back, seeing Grayson lying there, freezing and still amid the howling storm, she couldn't bring herself to abandon him just yet. She set the bag down, returned to the chair, her hand still on the stick, her eyes fixed on him. Live through this night, she whispered. Then I'll escape you. But deep down, she knew this long night would change everything. and she couldn't predict what would come when the first light pierced through the storm. If you were Avery, would you save Grayson? Please leave a comment below to let me know your choice, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Chapter 5. From Enmity to Closeness. The lake storm from the Great Lakes refused to relent, as if determined to trap Avery Quinn and Grayson Bradley in the small wooden cabin in Stormhaven for days more. The long night after Grayson woke up, Avery had sat curled in her chair, gripping the wooden stick, her eyes never leaving him until the gray dawn light slipped through the cracks in the window. The wind still howled outside, the waves still crashed fiercely against the rocky shore, and Avery knew she couldn't escape, not yet. Grayson, though awake, remained as frail as a dried leaf after a downpour, lying under the old blanket by the fireplace, his breathing steady but weary. He'd promised not to harm her, but Avery didn't believe him, not fully. Yet she couldn't bring herself to abandon him in this storm, even though he was the enemy who'd hunted her from Chicago to here. The next morning, Avery stood in the small kitchen corner, her hand wielding an old knife to cut a fresh fish she'd bought from Elsie before the storm hit. She tossed the fish into a pot of boiling water on the fireplace, adding a pinch of salt and a few wild herbs growing near the cabin, making a simple soup. The smell of fish mingled with wood smoke filled the room, overpowering the damp chill of the storm. Avery glanced at Grayson, seeing him sit up, leaning against the wall, his deep blue eyes watching her with a mix of curiosity and fatigue. "You don't have to do that," he said, his voice hoarse but clearer than the night before. "I won't starve to death." Avery shrugged, keeping her distance as she set the bowl of soup on the floor near him, not coming closer than necessary. "I'm not doing it for you," she replied, her tone cold. "I'm doing it because I don't want the guilt of letting you die in my house. Eat it, then fend for yourself when you're strong again." She turned back to the kitchen corner, sat in her chair, her hand still clutching the stick like an invisible shield between them. Grayson picked up the bowl, took a small sip, his eyes not leaving her. "It's good," he said, a faint smile crossing his lips. Avery didn't respond, only staring out the window where rain still lashed the glass. The storm stretched into the second day, then the third, forcing Avery and Grayson to coexist in the cramped space of the cabin. Avery cared for him reluctantly, changing the bandage on his arm when it oozed blood, heating water so he wouldn't freeze, and cooking simple soups from fish and herbs. But she always kept her distance, speaking only in short commands. "Stay still, eat, don't die." Grayson, though weak, began to recover thanks to her care. He no longer lay motionless, starting to help with small tasks. Like when he noticed the window rattling in the wind, he stood, took an old plank from the corner, and nailed it in place, though his hands still trembled and each hammer blow was slow. Avery watched him work, her eyes wary, but she didn't stop him. On the fourth day, as the rain briefly eased, Grayson stepped out to the beach with the old fishing rod Avery had found in the cabin. He returned with 2 small fish, setting them on the kitchen table without a word. Avery frowned but silently cooked them into soup, this time adding a bit of seasoning from her own supplies. "I don't need you to do that," she said, her voice stiff as she placed the bowl in front of him. Grayson shrugged, that faint smile reappearing. "I don't like owing anyone," he replied, taking a sip of the soup. "Consider it payment for the days you didn't let me die." Avery turned away, unwilling to admit that his actions made her see him less as the cold, ruthless enemy who'd once hunted her. Gradually, through those reluctant days together, Avery began to realize Grayson wasn't entirely the man she'd thought. He didn't issue orders, didn't threaten, didn't exude the authority she'd seen in Chicago. He quietly took on small chores, fixing the window, fishing, stoking the fire when she was tired, as if trying to prove something. One afternoon, as Avery sat in her chair with her laptop, editing a logo, Grayson sat by the fireplace, staring into the crackling flames. He spoke up unexpectedly. "I once wanted to leave my family, live free by the sea like this." Avery stopped typing, glancing at him, her eyes skeptical. "Why didn't you?" she asked, her tone flat. Grayson sighed, his gaze distant. "Because my father wouldn't allow it. He built the Bradley empire with money and power, and I was the tool to expand it. I had no choice. Marry Mia, inherit the company, or lose everything. I wanted to escape, but I didn't have the courage. He gave a dry chuckle. You did that, ran from Chicago, something I never dared. Avery stayed silent, his words striking a deep chord within her. She set her laptop down, looking at him through the firelight. I didn't run because I wanted to, she said, her voice low but firm. I ran because you chased me. I loved designing, freelancing in Chicago, even though it wasn't easy. But I was lonely, no family, no one but Mia. When she begged me, I had to help her escape your golden cage. I don't regret it, even if you scared me half to death. Grayson looked at her, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. You were lonely in Chicago? He asked, his voice softer. Avery nodded, her hand unconsciously clutching the edge of her hoodie. I lived alone, worked alone. Mia was the only one who cared about me. When she needed me, I couldn't say no. Grayson fell silent, then said quietly, I was lonely too. In Chicago, I had everything, money, power, but no one was really there for me. My father only saw me as a tool, not a son. The distance between them seemed to shrink with each word. In the days that followed, Avery and Grayson began to share more. Not because they wanted to, but because the storm forced them to face each other. Once, as Avery wiped the rain-fogged window, her hand brushed Grayson's when he handed her a dry rag. They both flinched, but neither pulled away immediately. Their eyes met for a moment, and Avery felt a strange warmth ripple down her spine. She turned away quickly, her heart racing, telling herself it was just a foolish reaction. On the sixth night, rain fell heavily again, the wind shrieking through the roof as if to tear it off. Avery sat by the fireplace, Grayson standing near the window, gazing out at the pitch-black beach. He suddenly turned, stepping close to her, his eyes deep. Avery, he said, his voice warm and low. I was wrong to hunt you. I didn't know who you were, why you did it. I just wanted to prove I wasn't a failure. But now I see, you're not my enemy. I regret it. Avery looked at him, her heart a jumble. Why should I believe you? She asked, her voice trembling. You drove me out of Chicago, made me live in fear. Now you say you regret it, but when the storm clears, you'll call someone to grab me, right? Grayson shook his head, stepping closer, so close Avery could feel his warm breath. No, he said, I'm done. If you give me a chance, I'll make it right. I don't want you to run anymore. Before Avery could react, Grayson leaned down, his lips brushing hers lightly. A gentle kiss, unlike the enmity she'd once seen in him. Avery froze, her breath catching, but the warmth from his kiss spread through her, like the fire flaring in the hearth. She pushed him back, her hands shaking, her eyes wild. What are you doing? She shouted, her voice breaking. Grayson stepped back, rubbing his face, his eyes confused. I don't know, he said, his voice hoarse. I didn't mean to, but you make me feel different. I don't want to scare you anymore. Avery clutched her chest, her heart pounding wildly. She wanted to yell at him, to run out into the storm, but the warmth of his kiss lingered on her lips, indelible like ink she couldn't erase. She wrestled inside. Grayson was her enemy, the one who'd forced her to flee, to live in terror. But he was also the man she cared for, who'd just spoken regret with an honesty she'd never seen before. I don't trust you, she said, her voice stiff. But I don't know anymore. I'm scared of you, but I don't want to be scared forever. Grayson looked at her, his gaze softening. Give me a chance, he said. I won't hurt you, I promise. Avery fell silent, her eyes flickering between Grayson and the door. She wanted to run from him, from Stormhaven, when the storm broke. But as she watched him sitting there, no longer the powerful Chicago businessman, but a tired man dreaming of freedom, she felt a small shift inside. I'll try, she said, her voice quiet but firm. But if you trick me, I won't forgive you. Grayson nodded, a spark of hope lighting his eyes. Avery turned away, hugging herself in the dark, her heart still racing. She still planned to leave when the storm cleared, still didn't fully trust Grayson, but she couldn't deny. He wasn't just her enemy anymore. He was a man of sincerity, one she was starting to understand, though she didn't want to admit it. The storm still raged outside, But within the cabin, something had begun to change. A small, warm flame quietly igniting between two hearts once at odds. Chapter 6. Love and Freedom. The lake storm from the Great Lakes finally broke after 7 fierce days, leaving Stormhaven in a rare, peaceful morning. Pale golden sunlight pierced through thin clouds, shimmering on the water's surface like thousands of gems scattered across a green tapestry. Avery Quinn stood on the porch of the small wooden cabin, cradling a mug of hot coffee, breathing in the salty sea air deeply. A gentle breeze blew through, carrying the storm's final breath, lifting her disheveled brown hair lightly. She had lived through the most tense days of her life, fleeing Chicago, saving Grayson Bradley from the raging waves, and reluctantly sharing this cabin with him. But now, watching Grayson stand on the sandy shore, sunlight illuminating his still slightly pale face, Avery no longer saw him solely as the enemy who'd once hunted her. He'd recovered. The cut on his arm was healing, his steps steadier, and his deep blue eyes gleamed with a new determination she'd never seen in him before. Avery gripped her coffee mug tighter, her gaze shifting between Grayson and the gravel path leading out of town. The storm was over. She could run, as she'd originally planned. Her bag with her laptop and a little cash still sat ready in the corner, waiting for her to grab it and vanish from Stormhaven before Grayson could call someone to catch her. But he didn't leave, though he was strong enough to stand. He stayed, fixing broken windows, stoking the fire, and looking at her with eyes no longer filled with anger, but with a tenderness that made her heart tremble. Avery turned back inside, set the mug on the table, trying to suppress the strange warmth creeping into her chest, a feeling she didn't want to acknowledge after his unexpected kiss a few nights ago. Grayson followed her in, carrying a large cloth bag, setting it on the wooden table with a soft thud. "I got this for you," he said, his voice low but tinged with excitement. Avery frowned, opened the bag, and was surprised to see a modern printer, the kind she'd dreamed of using to print design drafts back in Chicago. "I bought it at Elsie's store this morning," Grayson continued, rubbing the back of his neck, his eyes flickering with a hint of shyness. "You said you needed it to work more efficiently. I thought, if you stay in Stormhaven, it'll help you keep designing without worrying about printing." Avery stared at the printer, then at Grayson, her heart beating faster. "Why did you do this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You don't need to be here anymore. The storm's over. You could go back to Chicago, call someone to grab me, like you planned from the start." Grayson stepped closer, his gaze locking onto hers. "I don't want to grab you," he said, his voice firm. "I want to stay, for you. I told you I regret hunting you, Avery. I don't want to return to Chicago, to my father's golden cage. I want to be here with you, if you'll let me." Avery stepped back, her hand clutching the table's edge, her eyes confused. "You're crazy," she said. "I'm the one who crashed your wedding, humiliated you in front of everyone. Why would you want to stay with me? Why should I trust you?" But though her words resisted, her heart stirred at his, something she couldn't deny, despite trying to push it away since that rainy night's kiss. Grayson didn't answer right away. He waved a hand, beckoning her to follow him to the beach. Avery hesitated but eventually stepped out, her old sneakers sinking into the damp sand left by the storm. A crescent moon rose in the sky, illuminating the quiet waves lapping at the shore. Grayson stood there, gazing at the lake, then turned to face her. "I never told you everything," he said, his voice deep like the tide. "When I was swept under in the storm, I thought I'd die. I didn't think about my father, my reputation, or money. I just thought, if I lived, I wanted to do something truly meaningful. And you saved me, Avery. Not because I'm Grayson Bradley, but because you couldn't leave someone behind." Avery stayed silent, her eyes fixed on him under the moonlight. Grayson stepped closer, his hand brushing hers lightly, warm and trembling. "I love you," he said, his voice catching. "I don't know when it started, but I knew it when you sat beside me in the storm, even though you could have left me. I don't want to lose you." Before Avery could react, Grayson leaned down, his lips touching hers, softly, gently, more a promise than a demand. Avery stiffened but didn't push him away. The kiss brimmed with emotion she couldn't deny, and when he pulled back, Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I love you too," she whispered, her voice breaking with feeling. "I was scared of you. I hated you. But I can't deny this anymore. I love you, Grayson." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight under the moon, and they stood there, the waves lapping softly as if witnessing two once-opposed hearts becoming one. But the past didn't let go easily. A week later, as Avery and Grayson sat in the cabin, Avery editing a design on her laptop, Grayson reading an old book about sailing, car engines rumbled from the gravel road. Avery jumped up, her heart racing, rushing to the window. Two black SUVs stopped outside, and 5 men in dark suits stepped out, their strides rigid like professional guards. Grayson set the book down, his face darkening. "They're here for me," he said, his voice low. The leader, a middle-aged man with silver hair and sharp eyes, pounded on the door. "Grayson Bradley," he called, his voice cold. "Your father orders you back to Chicago immediately. Don't make us use force." Avery grabbed Grayson's hand, her eyes panicked. "They'll take me," she whispered. "You said you'd stop, but they'll—" Grayson squeezed her hand, his gaze resolute. "They won't touch you," he said, then stepped forward, opening the door and standing in front of Avery like a living shield. "I'm not going back," he told the man, his voice hard as steel. "Tell my father, I renounce my inheritance, Bradley Enterprises, everything. I'm staying here with her." The man frowned, his eyes cutting. "You know the consequences, Grayson. Your father will cut you off. Money, reputation, every tie. You'll have nothing." Grayson gave a dry laugh, his hand still holding Avery's. "I don't need anything from him anymore. I have what I want right here." The man glanced at Avery, his look disdainful, but said no more. He turned back to the SUVs, the group climbed in, and they drove off, the engines fading into the sea air. Avery looked at Grayson, her eyes brimming with emotion. "You gave up everything for me?" she asked, her voice trembling. Grayson turned, cupping her face. "I gave up that cage because I want to live real. With you," he said. Avery didn't run anymore. She trusted him, believed he'd protect her, as he'd just done. In the months that followed, Grayson didn't just stay in Stormhaven for Avery. He started something bigger. With the experience and skills that once ran Chicago's real estate empire, Grayson saw this coastal town lacked a safe dock for fishermen. Storms like the last one often destroyed boats, robbing locals of their livelihoods. Using his personal savings, he contacted old engineers from Chicago and began building a small but sturdy dock near Stormhaven's beach. He worked alongside local fishermen, driving pilings, pouring concrete, designing a shelter for boats during storms. Avery watched him from the porch, coffee in hand, marveling at his change. From a cold businessman in pricey suits to a man in a mud-stained cotton shirt. Hands calloused from labor, his eyes alight with a joy she'd never seen. Grayson didn't stop at the dock. He formed a small rescue team with a few young fishermen. He bought an old boat from a nearby port, naming it Blue Horizon, and fixed it up for emergencies. The people of Stormhaven, initially wary of the city guy, grew to respect him. Elsie, Avery's landlord, once told her, "He's not the freeloading type. He gets things done." Avery smiled, never expecting Grayson to find purpose in the place she'd thought was just a temporary hideout. While Grayson built the dock, Avery kept up her graphic design work. He kept his promise. The printer he'd bought let her print drafts quickly, and she opened a small studio in a larger cabin they bought together near the beach. Storm Designs became where Avery worked with online clients, crafting logos and banners for local businesses, even signs for Grayson's dock. They lived simply, the sound of waves their life's soundtrack, and each day, Avery felt their love deepen through small moments. Grayson bringing fish for soup, Avery brewing coffee for him after his beachside work. One early spring afternoon, as Avery sat on the porch with her laptop, an old motorcycle rattled to a stop out front. Avery looked up, her heart skipping when she saw Mia and Jake step off. Mia, her hair shorter and her smile radiant, rushed forward and hugged Avery tight, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Avery, we've been looking for you forever," Mia said, her voice choked. "Thank you for saving me from Grayson, from that cage. Without you, I don't know where I'd be." Jake stood behind, grinning, holding an old guitar, still as laid back as the day they'd fled Chicago. "You're a hero, Avery," he said, his voice warm. Avery hugged Mia back, laughing. "I thought you two had vanished for good," she said. "How'd you find me?" Mia winked. "I heard about a designer here, saw the banners and designs online. I knew it had to be you." Avery chuckled, then glanced toward the beach where Grayson stood with fishermen, directing the installation of dock anchors. Mia and Jake followed her gaze, their jaws dropping, eyes wide with shock. "Wait," Mia whispered, pulling Avery closer. "That's Grayson Bradley? What's he doing here, building a dock? I thought he'd drag you back to Chicago." Jake cut in, his tone playful. "Look at that. The guy's ditched the suits. He looks like a real fisherman. Avery, what magic did you work?" Avery laughed, shaking her head. "He's not the enemy anymore," she whispered to Mia. "He stayed for me, and now he's helping the people here." "Don't ask. I can't believe it either." Mia and Jake exchanged a look, then burst out laughing, unable to fathom that Grayson Bradley, the cold businessman who'd once forced Mia toward a wedding, was now on the beach, his shirt smeared with mud, shouting orders to fishermen like a true local. Just then, Grayson walked up from the sand, a small hammer in hand, sweat dripping down his forehead. He spotted Mia, smirked mischievously, and said, "Well, if it isn't my fiancé." His tone was teasing, free of malice. Mia's eyes widened, nearly dropping the coffee mug Avery had handed her, then laughed loudly. "What? You still remember that?" she asked, hands on hips. Grayson nodded, his eyes twinkling. "Thanks to you, I found Avery, Mia. If it weren't for that wrecked wedding, I'd still be stuck in Chicago, living in my father's golden cage. So, thank you, my almost bride." He winked, then turned to Avery, his gaze softening. "But I chose this real wife instead." Mia and Jake erupted in laughter, Mia slapping Avery's shoulder. "You're a wizard, turning this guy into a decent human." Avery blushed, muttering, "Don't exaggerate, I'm shocked too." Grayson just smiled, stepping closer to Avery, resting a hand on her shoulder in a quiet affirmation, then heading back to his work. Mia hugged Avery again. "You're incredible, Avery," she said. "I owe you my life." They sat on the porch, catching up on the past months. Mia and Jake had escaped to Wisconsin, living in a small house where Jake played gigs at local bars. Avery told them about the storm, Grayson, and how they'd gone from enemies to lovers. Mia's eyes widened. "He kissed you in the rain? God, it's straight out of a romance movie." Jake laughed. "If I'd known he was this good, I'd have let him marry Mia." Avery punched his arm lightly, the three of them laughing, their voices blending with the waves. Time passed, and Avery and Grayson grew closer. A year later, Avery gave birth to a boy named Storm, a tribute to the tempest that had reshaped their lives. He had Grayson's blue eyes and Avery's bright smile, growing up in the beachside cabin, playing in the sand and listening to the waves daily. Grayson taught Storm to fish. Avery taught him to draw his first designs with colored pencils. Storm designs flourished, not just Avery's studio, but a shared space where she and Grayson worked together. He drafting technical plans for the dock, she turning them into striking signs. One fall evening, as the sunset painted the Great Lakes gold, Grayson led Avery to the beach near the dock he'd built for Stormhaven. The breeze tousled her brown hair, and she laughed as Grayson pretended to fumble with a rope, as if still working. "What are you up to, fixing the boat again?" she teased, hands on hips. But when she turned, Grayson was on one knee in the sand, holding a small silver ring, not a lavish diamond, but a handmade piece from a local smith, etched with G and A intertwined like waves. Avery froze, eyes wide, hand over her mouth as Grayson looked up, his deep blue eyes blazing in the dusk. "Avery Quinn," he said, his voice low but trembling. "I once thought I had it all. Money, power, prestige. But I never truly lived until I met you. You saved me from the storm, not just out there, but inside me. I was wrong to hunt you, but because of that, I found you, the one I want to spend my life with. Will you marry me?" Avery stood silent, tears streaming down her cheeks, not from fear, but from a joy she'd never dared imagine. She nodded, her voice choked. "Yes, Grayson." I will. He slipped the ring onto her finger, stood and pulled her into a tight embrace, their lips meeting in a deep kiss amid the soft lapping of waves, as if the sea itself blessed them. Their wedding came a month later, not in a grand hotel like the ruined one in Chicago, but on Stormhaven's beach, a small, simple, warm ceremony. Avery wore a plain white dress, no veil, her hair tied loosely to dance in the sea breeze. Grayson stood beside her in a white shirt and jeans, no suit, no tie, a free version of himself she adored. Only a few attended, Mia and Jake, Elsie, Marla from the Driftwood, and some fishermen who'd worked with Grayson on the dock. A small wooden table held bread, Avery baked, and hot coffee from Marla's shop. Mia, as maid of honor, hugged Avery before the vows, whispering, "You deserve this happiness, Avery." Jake played his guitar, a self-written song about love, weathering storms, sweetening the air. Elsie, the eldest there, officiated. "Grayson Bradley, do you promise to love and protect Avery Quinn for life?" she asked, her aged voice quavering but warm. Grayson held Avery's hand, his eyes shining. "I promise, forever." Elsie turned to Avery. "And you, Avery, do you promise to stand by Grayson through hardship or joy?" Avery smiled, her eyes glistening. "I promise, even if he's a lovable idiot." Laughter rippled through the small crowd, and when Elsie declared, "I pronounce you husband and wife," Grayson pulled Avery into a deep, sweet kiss, tasting of the coffee she brewed him each morning. Mia clapped, shouting, "Kiss her again!" making Avery blush and shove Grayson playfully amid everyone's laughter. After the guests left, Avery and Grayson stayed on the sand, hand in hand, watching the sun sink below the lake. Storm, their 1-year-old son, slept peacefully in his stroller beside them, his chubby cheeks pink in the twilight. Avery leaned her head on Grayson's shoulder, whispering, "You know, I never thought I'd be here with you, like this, from enemies to husband. Sometimes I think it's a dream." Grayson chuckled softly, stroking her hair. "Me too," he said. "I thought my life was just money and power, that I had to live by my father's rules. But you changed everything, Avery. You taught me freedom's worth more than anything I ever had." Avery looked up, her eyes bright in the gathering dark. "I was afraid of you, Grayson," she said, her voice small but honest. "When you chased me from Chicago, I thought I'd lose everything. My work, my freedom, myself. But saving you in the storm, I realized. Sometimes you have to face fear to find something greater. I never expected it'd be you." Grayson squeezed her hand, his gaze tender. "I regret scaring you," he said, "but I'm grateful for not leaving me, for giving me a chance to make it right. Without you, I'd still be a lonely man in that golden cage." They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the waves and Storm's steady breathing in his sleep. Avery smiled, adding, "You know the biggest lesson I've learned? That love isn't just finding someone, it's overcoming adversity together. We started as enemies, but now I can't imagine my life without you." Grayson nodded, brushing her cheek lightly. "And I learned freedom isn't having it all, it's choosing what truly matters. I chose you, Avery, and it's the best choice I've ever made." Avery laughed softly, pressing closer to him. "Mia says I'm a witch for turning you from a cold businessman into Stormhaven's own," she teased. Grayson laughed, his voice warm. "She's right. But I think I fell for that witch the moment she saved me in the storm, though I didn't dare admit it then." He leaned down, kissing her lips lightly, and Avery kissed back, the kiss sweet as moonlight on the lake. They sat there, hands clasped, watching blue horizon, the boat Grayson had nearly died on, drift far across the water, a symbol of their journey from enmity to love. Storm stirred in his stroller, letting out a soft whimper, drawing Avery and Grayson's eyes to their son. "This little guy will grow up with the sea and our love," Avery said, her voice gentle. Grayson nodded, pride in his eyes. "And he'll know his parents were once enemies, but love won out," he said. Avery laughed. "Let's hope he doesn't pick up your hunting habits." Grayson winked. "No chance. I'll teach him to love like I love his mother." Night fell, moonlight bathing Stormhaven's beach, encircling Avery and Grayson in a soft glow. They'd weathered storms, both in the world and within, to find each other, and their greatest lesson was this: true love isn't just fate, it's choice, sacrifice, and trust, building a free, meaningful life together. Thank you for following this heartfelt story of Soul Stories channel. Share your thoughts about the story in the comments below. If you believe that true love can withstand all trials and sometimes begins in the simplest of ways, don't forget to hit the like button and share this story with your friends. To never miss out on touching and meaningful stories, subscribe to our channel and help us spread messages of love and warmth to everyone.